vibe. And I think, taking it day by day, I think everyone is like kind of doing that. So, for me, I'm doing the same thing as everyone else. And I want to say just thank you for giving me the space, right? Because there's an important part, like advocates or people who are releasing anything, we're not entitled to anyone's space, right? I think the most
Mm-hmm.
powerful part about, being able to be accepted to your space is you actually being able to accept me to your space. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you want to start or I start.
I know. Let me just see. This is my first time really doing. Okay, pen. Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. I pinned it.
Yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
How did you enjoy your birthday during quarantine?
Yeah, yeah. I had fun. The reason
Okay.
why I say that is because my book actually came out on my birthday. So yeah, I spent most of my morning. I got mad because I woke up 30 minutes late. I spent
Uh-huh.
3.5 hours DMing every single person, 1,370 people,
Oh
and then
wow.
yeah, yeah, and then that night, and then yesterday I spent last night messaging 550 people, and then this morning around like 7 o'clock, I messaged 500 people who are following me on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
doing a lot of the groundwork, and then reaching out to a lot of the book stores that have Instagrams and are doing events. So I've been doing a lot of that, and then I'm kind of happy, right? Like I'm kind of happy I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to kind of release this book, in a real powerful way. Oh yeah, so it's called 40 Hours in a Dream. And for a lot of people, my first book, whoever haven't read it, I had like the not for resale book, and it's Victory
Okay.
Street Politics. So this is the first like messed up book, and when you first get it in the mail, you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I kept this and I left Amazon, so I'm on Blur right now. And yeah, I mean, for me, people ask me like, what was the title and like why the cover was like this. And for myself, I think there's a certain moment that I'm seeing that directly impacted people who've been through the system, like myself. I was incarcerated for 7 years,
Right.
um, and me being in the system, we didn't really know how to heal, right? Like as men, as individuals who have been traumatized, who have had PTSD or still dealing with PTSD or creating
Mm-hmm.
some mental health crisis or mental health illness while they're incarcerated. We never asked ourselves like, how do you actually heal from that process? And for myself, I spent 2.5 years in solitary confinement. You know what I'm saying? So like spending 2.5 years in solitary confinement kind of changes your whole thinking about a lot of different things. And for me, like one of the most important things about like healing process was, how do I heal? Like you're a writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know that our only way to actually increase or include or empower ourselves is to figure out what is our balance in life. And like for myself,
Definitely.
yeah, myself was how do I express myself? So I really started using poetry. I've been home 5.5 years, and I really just started using poetry in a real powerful way. Um, yeah, so I think I could keep going on and on for that, but yeah, definitely.
So how did you find writing to be your outlet when you came out
Yeah,
of prison?
yeah. I mean, the same way. Um, every time you're in prison and in jail, you
Mm-hmm.
are always getting letters, right? Like because I spent 2.5 years in solitary confinement out of the 5 years I was incarcerated. I was incarcerated for 7 years altogether. Now, and I spent 2 years on Rikers, 16, 17, and came home when I was 18. I got reincarcerated again, 19, so I was 24. And out of the 5 years, I was in and out of solitary confinement for 2.5 years. And like anytime you are getting mail, like that is the letters, right? Like the letters of
Mm-hmm.
someone showing how much they care about you and connecting, not through a phone but through letters.
Through
And my
words.
way yeah, words. And I think that was the best thing that I really started doing, is really expressing myself through healing and really doing poetry. um and I think for me, like that became the safe the it became the part for me to push myself further. These past couple months I was thinking about like, I had this book, this poetry book, and I was like, I need to release this. I feel like I have a big weight on my back. And for me, was like, how do I introduce the world again to another book, right? And how do I tell people like this is real? This is not something like I'm sitting down and just saying I want to sit down and do it. It's like
Right.
we need to be serious about this. Me and
Mm-hmm.
you are authors, and like we need to talk about like since 1994, the only increase of black and brown authors, it only increased by 20%, and it only
Wow.
started in 2015. And like, for anyone who's like really thinking about some of the conversations, like 77% of publishers, of individuals who own um, the abilities for your book to be created and established to the community are white. So, like, it came to a certain point. A lot of us who are black and brown are going the independent wise. But
Mm-hmm.
like the thing about it is that a lot of us are understanding that there's a misbalance to the book industry, the author industry, and also remember, like, you know, black and brown libraries is being attacked, especially black libraries is being attacked in the civil rights
Mm-hmm.
movement. The reason why is because they didn't want you to know
They don't
knowledge
want us
at
to
all.
read.
And that's true. You know what I'm saying? So like when I get to the deeper roots of why writing your story and finding true healing, and the abilities of knowing that the market that includes people of color is missing. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, I don't live in I don't live in a suburb or a neighborhood that is white owned. I live in a hood. I'm from the west side of Harlem. You know what I'm saying? So for me,
Harlem.
yeah, I know. For us, it's like
Mm-hmm.
writing a book really inspire people around us who are from our neighborhood to say, you know what? If she or they or them or he can do it, how can I do it? So there's a certain point why I wrote with many layers,
Mm-hmm.
and while we write, it's always important for us to keep our message. But as a man, like poetry for me was the healing process for me to feel that I was able to push myself forward in life, you
Right.
know?
So for those people that just came in, just give them a little bio on you and
Yeah.
what you do and your book.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an author, entrepreneur, and returning citizen. So I I came out with two books. Called the first one I came out 2 years ago was called Victim to Street Politics. 3,000 people actually bought that. And then I just came out with $40 in a Dream. As you know, also I have my clothing line, Politic X, that I educate people through our ancestors, and the abilities of educating the younger generation by connecting entrepreneurship, fashion, and activists. And then I also have an app that's going to be coming out soon. It's called Our Latinx app. And then I was supposed to come out with something called Unity Market, but it never really happened. And the reason why you asked me why that all interconnect with each other is because it's like if we're really serious about, as myself, I am an activist. I do advocacy work. I work on one of the biggest campaigns that helped close Rikers Island and made it illegally bind it to close Rikers Island by 2026. And the reason why it's so important to be not just in this field, but to know who I am is because like I can't talk about economic independence and financial freedom, or talking about actually investing in community and building community without establishing the tools of what it looks like, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can't talk to someone who about writing a book if I never wrote the book myself, right? So like I think our tools of education and to be pushed in a more serious note has to people have to see what you're talking about, right? And for myself is like, you know, it's important for all of us as a collective to establish stuff, but establish us to create our own job and our own abilities to create our own jobs, right? Because we've been waiting for government to establish
We're
something
gonna
for
be
us that's
waiting
never gonna happen.
forever.
Yep. And you see what happened now that we are in the most midst of what we already knew, that our community is dealing with health issues, that our community lives in close quarters, and our community is getting hit the most by COVID-19, as I've been speaking about it. But why is it important? It's like, our story needs to be set our way, and our abilities of why I do this is that I'm an educator, and that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, so your book, $40
Yeah.
in a Dream. Tell us about your book. I know it's a poetry book, but where'd you get your inspiration to name it $40 in a Dream?
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think about that? Because before before anything, what made you kind of? We're both from the urban neighborhood. We from the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know if you ever had someone that came home before. And I don't know. So every time someone comes home from prison,
Okay.
they usually only have $40 that actually add up
Oh,
to, no matter how much you can do, 30, 40 years, that $40 is what you come home with. It's what gives you the
gotcha.
access to buy Metro card, to get on the train. So that $40 is added up either through what family send you money, or if also you're working, and in reality you won't even make $40. People are getting paid
Okay.
87 cents a week. So yeah, the $40 in a Dream. I remember when I was first coming home, it was my second to last time from being in solitary confinement, and I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do in this world? And I was maxing out. My last time I was maxing out. A weapon was put in my locker. So a weapon, that means like it was May 5th.
Someone
I
like made something and
Yeah,
okay.
made something. Yeah, and put it right in
Wow.
where in my living environment. So what that actually mean? And on top of that, they actually dropped a note to the correctional officers and said I was making weapons. But you know
Wow.
what?
They planted it basically.
Yeah, and at the end of the day,
Wow.
yeah. So it was my last time being in solitary confinement, and like I was maxing out. I was supposed to go home June 3rd, and I was maxing out, and I was now my time to go home was December 31st, 2014. And I asked myself, I said, I was going upstate. I was in Riverview, 8 hours away from the city. When you go
Mm-hmm.
outside, you can see the Canadian Bridge. That's how far it is away from the city. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had to ask myself, like, when I was coming home, like, what was my dream? You know what I'm saying? And then um, usually, anytime that people are coming home from that far along the city, they usually send them down close to the city, 2.5 hours, called Ulster. Um,
Okay.
so when I was coming home, a correctional officer told me, he said, hey man, you better be prepared, man. And he gave me the $40. He said, here's your $40 and chase your dream. And for a lot of us who've been incarcerated and know that our criminal justice system has 2.2 million people, and every single year, even today, there's 8 or 9 people still going into Rikers, right? Like there's still a small percentage of people. And the thing about it is, when we talk about the criminal justice system or the punishment system, a lot of people in prison and jail who are coming home don't have
Mm-hmm.
the basic needs to be successful. So when I came home, you telling me, here's your $40 and chase a dream, without the proper tools
Right.
to
To even
have
do
to be
that.
successful. So like would have been more better. It would have been like, here's your tools, your reentry programs to get you jobs, your housing to make sure you
Right.
have housing, and none of that happened. So for me coming home 5.5 years, I had to start from the ground up and figure out 4.5 years of 5 years of figuring out where am I going to go in life. So my title is a long title, but it talks about everyone's vision. The 40 hours in a dream is everyone who's incarcerated who are coming home of only having $40, sometimes only having $40 in their pocket. And then people who are homeless, what I'm saying? There
Yeah.
are people who are homeless who only have $40. And you imagine how far and how long did that person stretch that $40?
Right.
So for me it's like the 40 hours in a dream. It's a title that define ourselves and our abilities of like, this criminal justice system doesn't work, but how do we heal?
Right. How do we heal? So how
Mm-hmm.
important is it for you to share your story?
Yes, it's always important. I think one of the most important things, like natives used to use public speaking and storytelling as a healing process to not just educate people, but to keep connecting the bridge to their ancestors. Like me and you, we're black and brown, but the majority of people who are writing about our stories are,
Aren't.
are aren't. Oh, and if they are people of color, we're not going more farther in our history to understand our kings and queens. We're not going more farther to detail these individuals. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the most important things is storytelling and book writing and ability for you to tell your own story. You know what I'm saying? And I always say, like, the the reason why storytelling is important is what are you gonna do, what are you gonna say, how do you connect with people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and my connection is like I tell my story. I think
Right.
that's a healing process to empower people to tell their story, but it's important, as someone is saying, we have to control the narrative.
Absolutely,
Our,
Gallo.
we have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to tell our story through our own lens. So when someone is either trying to tell your story, they won't be able to because they don't know your situation. You know
And
what I'm
they didn't
saying?
live
You'll
in
be
your
able to tell.
shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I've been telling my story for 5.5 years. I spoke at places like Harvard, Yale. I've been featured in Success Magazine, Revoke, BET, National Geographic. I can keep going, but I think those are things that happen. I don't never go for that. I just, I think for me, like, I just do the work, man, and then whatever the world gives to me, whatever energy the world gives to me, I kind of I'm happy with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think as society, as human beings, who whatever you believe in, God or Buddhist or whatever, is the energy of the world kind of balancing itself to me. So I feel like that I'm in a great place where I know I changed a lot of people's life. I know I'm a mentor to a lot of people, and I'm proud as a man to know that where I came from, the
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle that I've been through, and the lifestyle that a lot of people still bring up because they are so in shock to know, like, I was that guy who was at 8 or 9 years old with my older brother selling drugs, 14, 15 selling drugs, and 16, 17 incarcerated, 18 probation, 19, so I was 24, 5 years incarcerated, 2.5 years in solitary confinement, and then being home for 5.5 years on gang parole. Like, my story talks for itself, but I think there's a certain moment where I'm in the I'm in a balanced world and a balanced
Mm-hmm.
place that I'm able to feel proud that I'm doing the work, right? That I'm actually educating, empowering people. So for me, I'm just I'm just happy I'm in this ability to even be alive. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we take life as a necessary, like it's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm. So when you do have these speaking engagements and you do talk to kids, what's one thing you want them to take away from you? One quote, one word you would want them to say, you know what? He said all this, but this stuck to me. And I know when I make the decision to do this, I'm going to think about what I'm going to call you
Hmm.
Mr. Guzman said to me right then and there.
Yeah, you only have one life.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? I think there's a real important part of like how structure of when people pass away in the black and brown community, and then people pass away in the white neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? Majority of our people, we know when someone passed away or dies, the first thing we're saying either they got shot or murdered. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And it's sad to say that even when you think about when someone died in the white community, you're saying either what did they die because of under health issues, right? And I think there comes to a certain point, um, reason why I say you only have one life, take advantage of it. Or like, what Greg always say, you're gonna die soon. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
think that's a certain moment where that balances and say, like, you have one life, and you
Mm-hmm.
have that one life to either take advantage of it, because there are people, and I'm not trying to throw people down. There are people who took their life in a different way, right? Like, there are people who
Mm-hmm.
took their life farther than me and doing 25 to life. You know what I'm saying? There are people who took life uh, far, and when I mean like, did a lot and lost their life. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, my life experience kind of talk about it, but I just say, man, you only got one life, and like, either you decide, either you want to
Mm-hmm.
live forever, or you want to die tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And that's a real important part to tell the young generation.
Right. And with you having your own two books out, what's one of your favorite books?
I don't know, man. I think for any victim of street politics is really good. It's funny because it was my baby, right? Like, everyone
Mm-hmm.
says that because I wrote majority of both of my books. I wrote portions of it while I was incarcerated, right? And I felt like it was important to not just talk about, like, the importance of me being incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
from even me coming home and being in relationships, right? Because men who are incarcerated and for me, like I never had a father figure who taught me how to treat a woman, right? So I had to go through problems and dealt with and issues or learning
Mhm.
lessons to kind of do that, right? And then I think for me, like I don't know which one is best, but like I think it talks about incarceration, and then one is like me who when I'm incarcerated, as I said, this is not for resale, and then the second one is like me coming home. So the third one will be something like similar
Mm.
to that pattern. But I think for me is like I don't know. I really love both, but I'll say because Victim to Street Politics is my first one, and then
Mhm.
people really loved it to the beyond where they was like, "You better come out with a book. You better come out with a book." Yeah, it's like I'll be walking down the street and someone will be like, "Yeah, I got your book. Uh, well, the second one is coming." It's like, yo, I'm like trying to close Rikers Island. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think I think excuse me, I think people my book just came out April, so I mean April 26th. Yes, 2 days ago. Right, 2 days ago,
Mhm.
and that means that they'll probably be giving. Some of the people will probably be getting their book right now or soon,
Okay.
and some people who ordered it will be getting their book in this week. So I'm gonna just probably see people's reaction to the book, and I think I asked for. The thing about it is like when you go on book touring, you never know who actually wants to hear you out in your story. And like for me, it's like me going book touring because on a book tour
Right.
and I
A
stop.
virtual one.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah, like I said before, man. I always say like, and I have to say it again. Thank you for like always giving platforms. As we always got to remember, like we don't own any platform. You know what I'm saying? Like, is
That's
your
the sad
platform?
part.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that too. But it's like we don't own your platform. Like, if I'm
Mhm.
asking to come to your show, it's because of you, and because you said yes. So I think the thing about it is like for me, how do I actually talk to people, and for me, like I DM'd everyone, you know what I'm saying? I DM'd all these bookstores and now it's like, oh shoot, I think I created too much for me, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think for everyone who's quarantined and people ask me like, why would you come out with a book? People haven't asked me this, but I think they are, or they're thinking this is like, why did you come out with a book while we're in quarantine? You're quarantined. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I think the
It's the
second thing
perfect
about it,
time.
yeah, and I think the
You
other
should
thing
be
about it is,
reading.
yeah, and I think this the important part about it is like really be really understand the healing process. Like as human beings, like people are emailing me. I was on a radio show in Toronto and they were saying to me about like a lot of people in Toronto don't know how to stay at home. Can he talk to someone who survived being in solitary confinement?
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I
And
get a lot
what
of.
was your answer? What was your answer to that
Oh
question?
hell yeah, yeah. Because at the end of the day, like what I've been through doesn't mean that it will help someone else out. Like when I'm always on these radio stations talking about my, how I survived being quarantined. We being quarantined and not being quarantined because being in solitary confinement for a long time. People want to hear that. Like, how did you survive? I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a TV. You know what
What
I'm
did
saying?
you have? What did you have?
Just books. You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes you got to wait a week until you get books, right? Because the library is established and created, and it is rolled and given by correctional officers where I was at. So majority, some days it'd be like every Tuesday, and we won't even get our books. So we'd be banging on the gate. Everyone, Bloods, Crips, Lion
Wow.
Kings, 5%. The Muslims banging on the door until we get our books. You know what I'm saying? Because for me, like when you read a book, it's like you're stuck in there, right? Like
Mm.
you
You
are
get
that
lost.
character. Why? Because if you're in solitary confinement so long, you know what I'm saying? Like I had to learn how to take bird baths, and when it gets the summertime, when it gets 110, when it gets 95, 98 degrees, in a cell is 105, 108 degrees. And that also means a lot of times, majority of our showers not being turned on every day. So for us, like book reading was something to kind of like balance myself and not have me lose my mind. Because, you know, it also was a eye opener for myself because I learned how important book reading was, and I also learned how important for you to establish financial freedom, you have to
Mm.
establish your ability to learn, how to read, study, and balance yourself to know what's the next step. But yeah, man, I think for me, like book reading, I was running through books. I was running through books.
Like what? Name some books.
Um, my favorite book, I would say that. Um, I think I think a lot of the civil rights movement books, right? Like
Mm.
the Malcolm X books was really
Oh,
powerful.
that's one of
Uh,
my
the,
favorite books.
the
Autobiography of
Fred,
Malcolm X.
yeah, I remember I was reading a book about Fred Hampton that really was really powerful. I was reading a book about um, violence and how violence impacts people. I can keep going on. I was even reading a lot of books about fairy tale and stuff like that, because it's like you're just thinking of anything. There's a certain point, even how the rush when you pick out a book and when you're in solitary confinement, how fast they go. They say, "Hey, hurry up and pick a book." So you're just like not even looking at
You're just
titles
picking
no
up
more.
whatever you could get.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. So I think for everyone, for me, book writing and book reading is really important. But I think as human beings, when even when I'm even on the train, when we was at a normal lifestyle,
Yeah.
I used to see like people read books, but a majority of people that was reading the books was people who was white and coming to black and brown neighborhoods. And I think it's important for us to, even if it means reading for 10 minutes when we get back to normal, and putting out a book for 10, 20 minutes, let the youth kind of see y'all, because the youth only mirrors everyone around them. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think there's a real important part, like book reading and the importance of us picking up a book and the youth kind of seeing us is really important.
Right. So what are some of the goals you have set out for yourself for the rest of this year?
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah.
you're
So,
doing a book tour. I know you say you've been reaching out to, you said you reached out to over what, 1,000 plus people?
so I reached out on Instagram. I reached out to 1,370 people. And then on messaging Facebook, I reached out to 500 people. Some people didn't have their message on, so like every
Hmm.
time I kept sending it, it didn't go through. And then I went to LinkedIn, and I reached out to 550 people. And then I haven't even finished all the texts, all the people that are who I have in my contact. So
Hmm.
I still have like 150 people left. And then I also have to go to my Twitter, and then my Twitter is something different. So yeah, I haven't got to my Twitter, and I haven't finished majority of my text. And then I also have like right now, I also have to. This magazine just reached out to me to be on the cover because
Oh,
the book came out. Yeah, 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 yeah,
congratulations.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, and then a lot of the CEOs who are like majorly known in the nonprofit world, I'm well connected to them, and I started reaching out to them about um, if they're able to really tweet, repost, and buy my book. So yeah, I think for this year, my goal is, and I think people ask themselves like, your goal. I think my goal is to establish the Politic X clothing line in a more powerful way. My goal is to the clothing line, as I told people, you can follow the clothing line as Politic X. Is to establish and keep creating um, educational tools like this. Malcolm X. I mean Martin
That's
Luther
Martha
King.
King.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
dope.
So even just something to keep establishing and creating something powerful, and to be unique, right? And I think the second thing, from my app is gonna be coming out soon. Is the Our Next app.
Okay, tell
And
us about the app. What it's
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So Our Latinx app is an app that will establish, create, and empower people who are in the brown community to be educated, to get involved, and to also know how to keep the dollar in their neighborhood by
Mm.
creating heat maps, by also knowing what communities have brown businesses that exist in black and brown neighborhoods. And the reason why I'm doing that, people want to ask me why, is because for us as individuals, as black and brown people, to be unified and create unity, we first, as a people, as brown people, we have to unify and empower and organize our people. So
Mm-hmm.
when we come to the table, it's like, okay, we this nonprofit or this app that now has a lot of power to come to the table with resources, but manpower, women power, and they power. So yeah, it's something that's gonna be really powerful, and I'm really and the it's done. It's just my software engineer as stuff is right, like edits, bugs, and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that is being done. Um, and then the Unity market is the I think there's a real important part that we're not talking when we create vending opportunities for people is to talk about how to keep the dollar in our neighborhood. So I created a fact sheet that will talk about why the dollar needs to stay in our neighborhood, but also a 10-point challenge that challenged Black and brown neighborhoods of how to keep the dollar in their neighborhood. So yeah, that is something that I'm waiting to everything gets back to normal, if it does, to fully establish and to create, but also to have Black and brown businesses, only Black and brown businesses in the same space, would be really powerful. Um, and then hopefully we talk offline because I know you have your book, and we need to. I'm definitely and serious about starting a publishing company, and we should definitely talk about
Let
that.
me
Me
let,
and
let me
you.
know.
I'm
Let me
serious.
know. Yeah.
Like, yeah, because I don't know what it looks like. I think we'll have the hard conversations, but I think there's important for not just to become a publishing company, but to create stories for people, or create stems of income for people who are also incarcerated too. I think their story matters. I met a lot of individuals who was former Black Panthers, individuals who has been forgotten about, individuals who spent 60 years in the system, still being denied that
It didn't do
parole.
anything.
Yeah, and even if they did do
Innocent.
something,
Mm-hmm.
even if they did do something, there's a how long does someone has to be in in punishment mode until you let that person go. So I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, like, I'm is really the most important part for people to create something now, and like we always set our table this small, and I think it's time
We gotta aim higher.
we got to aim higher, and I think for me, I'm a thinker, and I'm also a person who, with just me, I'm just kind of narrowing everything. And I think for a lot of times people say, yo, you're doing way too much. And like, it's not, I think everything I'm doing, from the clothing line I wear, from the book that I educate you, from Unity Market, from even the Art X, is everything has an
And it's all
interconnect with.
connected. Yeah. It's all
Mhm.
connected.
Yeah.
Especially I feel you when you said the you're trying to do like a fact sheet. We're just gonna that's just gonna include like Black owned businesses because so maybe sometime last month before quarantine, I was a moderator at an event and it was for two Black women. One owned the only Black owned bookstore in Manhattan. The other one owned the only Black cafe in the Bronx. And so we were just talking about just how it's hard for us to establish ourselves in our own community sometimes because of
Hmm.
the lack of knowledge of us not knowing, because we are afraid to go out and ask people, oh, I'm opening up this business. Would you mind investing in my brand? Like, it's not just for me, it's for everybody. So I'm so glad that you're going to put something like that out because I feel like that sometimes a lot of us, we don't know. Because when I was talking
Hmm.
to the woman, I said, this is my first time at this bookstore. And she's had the bookstore in Harlem. It's called Sister Bookstore. It's like on
Oh yeah,
165th.
I
She's
always
had
go
it.
there.
It's been there for like 50 plus years. And that was my first time going inside there.
I think the part is that I'm sorry,
No, no,
I
no,
don't know if
no,
you
no,
stopped.
no, no. Go ahead. But it's just like it's important for us to have just a place where we all can just go and say, okay, I want to go to a bookstore. All right, I'm Googling Black owned bookstore. And then it's just like a list of all these places that we can go. And not just in New York, but just all
Hmm.
over the country. Because like you said, a lot of these Black owned businesses are getting shut down.
Hmm.
A lot of these
Yeah.
places in Harlem that we should have had as landmarks that were owned by Black people, they're knocking them down for $1 million buildings. And a lot of
Yeah.
times they're not letting community people know, like, okay, we want to take this property and build something. We want to build like $1 million condo. We're not going to
Hmm.
ask the people that live here about it. We're just going to do it. Like, no, you need to let us know so we can come together and say, no, we want you to make this part a landmark.
Yeah. And so a lot of that process has to go through when gentrification kind of works, right? Like, we're not we're we're almost not there yet. I
Mm-hmm.
tell you, when Harlem is gentrified is when we have someone who's white who's running for office for our district. That's when Harlem is not ours
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Um, I think I get to the part is like book libraries and bookstores have to establish themselves in a better way, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
community work, grassroots work has to be done, you have to reach out to your community, right? You have to
Yeah.
knock on doors and say, hey, you speak Spanish? We have Spanish books here. You know what I'm saying? You have to knock on these doors. And then the other part about it is that I love, and I love how there are bookstores who are establishing and creating themselves to be leveled with what's going on now. Is like people want to be able to throw events at your
Mm.
bookstore without even going to your bookstore. What if they just, create, you have they DM you, you have a big
Mm-hmm.
follow on social media, and you have a Google Doc that talks about all the stuff that you want to do at their bookstore, or if you want to do a live or a Zoom, that needs to be established for Black and brown, and especially Black and brown store owners who've been there for a long time and are just not comfortable understanding social media. So
Mm-hmm.
like I think the groundwork can be done from us and saying, hey, we're from this neighborhood, and I think there's a big chunk that's missing. And the big chunk is people are not comfortable, and especially elders are not comfortable with younger people saying,
And that's
hey,
the sad part.
and I think the part is, people are comfortable. If it's gonna get to that, like that level, and then say, hey, I'm not gonna be here no more, then give us the company. You know what I'm saying? Like, give us the abilities for us to actually establish and understand what is going on. Because if we even get it, it would be powerful. Like Jewish gives their company
Oh, they stick
creation
together.
down the chain. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I went to that bookstore too, and I told her the same thing. She had a coffee shop that was not being used. It was beautiful, and I think the scariest thing about it is that she's like, we always do events here, and I was like, hey, can I email you, or can I kind of look at the Google Doc? She said, no, I don't have that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you're the only coffee shop there. You should take advantage of that. You can be the only one delivering and getting coffee. And then the other part about it is like social media, man. People just got to keep up with it. So yeah,
I
the
agree.
part where the part that it talks about, the fact sheet that talks about, is making sure you keep the dollar in our neighborhood by making sure that you are uh, 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 dealing with manufacturers who are Black and brown owned,
Mm-hmm.
and down for them even spending at a Black and brown owned business, right? And how do you do that, right? And then if your manufacturer is not Black and brown owned, look for one. And then how do you even go farther than that? Like as your business is growing and getting far, how do you figure out where is Black and brown owned uh, 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 businesses that create some of the things you need? Is they like shirts, T-shirts? They're
Mm-hmm.
creating that in Africa too. Like it's not only China. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's everywhere, but we
so
don't
I
take the
think.
time to actually look for it. There's a whole
Mhm.
website called We Buy Black, and everybody on there, from toothpaste to detergent to, like you said, clothes to masks, is all created by black and brown
Yeah.
people. We have to go out there and actually look and search for it. But a lot of us are lazy and we don't want to do it. We rather just shop easily and quickly, but we don't want to
Mhm.
look and do the research.
Yeah, but it's not just even just establishing. We gotta go farther than that. We
Mm-hmm.
gotta we gotta talk about how to keep the dollar in our neighborhood. If you're a
No, you're
restaurant,
absolutely right.
if,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a restaurant and you're getting your products from farms that are not Black and brown owned, then you're kind of like you're not doing what's supposed to be done, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? If we are like buying from clothing lines that are not black, or designers that are not Black and brown owned, then it's, like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? So like, even going to the other part, where are you getting your products from? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
So
that's
that
true.
that that so for us, we got to that level. Let's go farther than that. You know what I'm saying? And get to that level. Now that's the real serious conversation.
Right. We got to go past it. No, I agree with you. So I was on your website, and before we close, I was on your website, and
Mm-hmm.
you had this quote up there. It says, "Do not forget, you are the power, you are the fire, you are the change." Talk to us about that quote and what it means to
Yeah.
you.
So I wrote on my website. I got a letter called "Welcome Home." It's a welcome home letter to anyone who's directly impacted. It's my website is not just for people who are coming home, but because I am formerly incarcerated, I have a letter called "Welcome Home," and it's believe in yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go through hell. You're gonna go through situations where you're gonna give up, or you're gonna try to give up. And I think Martin Luther King said something really powerful. He said, either you walk, crawl, jump, just keep going. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, like what I've been through, being stabbed, being being in the hospital, being incarcerated for a long time, losing friends, and just kind of almost losing myself. I think there's when I say the words, it's like me saying like this was my story, and you can go and believe in yourself too.
Absolutely. Well, it was so good talking to you.
Thank you.
Before you go, please tell the people where they could get your books, where they could
Yeah,
find you. Still say all that you do and everything. Give us the whole spiel
yeah.
again.
So Linktree, you can go right to my Linktree right now. You go to my Linktree, and I have one. The first book is 40 Hours in a Dream. That's the first one that's gonna pop up on Blur. And then Victim Street Politics. When you look on Blur, someone said any questions. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the second thing, just follow me, man. I think I'm doing a lot of powerful stuff.
No, you are
That
not think. You are doing a lot of powerful stuff. You're doing a
Thank you. I
lot.
appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So yeah, support as much as possible. Either is the clothing line, or is the books that I'm coming out with. The books right now, right? So Victim to Street Politics. Go to my link tree. It'll pop up. It's $8. This is $8. It's only $8. The reason why I did that is because it's important. Because we are in quarantine, I know money is kind of a stretch. And the reason why I say that because I got to think about my community, not as myself as an individual making a $20 book. And then the second thing about it is like, um, get it. You know what I'm saying? This is a point where it's powerful, it's healing. And I think for anyone who's incarcerated, pay it forward, right? Like, how people say repeat campaign. After you buy your book and if you feel like you're done, you say, you know what, let me give it to someone that you feel that deserve it or
Mm-hmm.
need it. So be a part of the repeat campaign that I'm actually establishing now. And I think the other thing is follow my clothing line, my app if you're brown owned or whoever you are. And then just please reach out to me for questions and any of that because I'm always willing to empower people and get people more involved.
I have one more question because you said something. You made me think about it. How
Hmm.
important was it to you to heal, especially from being incarcerated, from just basically your whole teenage years just flash before your eyes? How important was it for you to heal after being in jail and being in solitary confinement to come out and say, you know what? I'm not going to let that hold me back. I want to be
Yeah,
something. I'm going to do something. How important was that for you?
it's a life lesson. Like I was tired of being young and carrying weapons and carrying a gun to kind of for anything. You know what I'm saying? It was a safety issue. I think for me, like my life, like what I've been through from getting stabbed, from um, being in wars, in Harlem wars with other housing complex, and being through some of the situations that I've been through, I knew I need a lot of healing. Like I've seen things I wasn't even supposed to see at a young age. So I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, like healing, is the most important thing that you can do. But I think if I didn't find the healing process, I don't know where I'll be at.
Yeah.
And for me, being in a lifestyle that I used to be, being gang related, and like I said before, being in the streets and really using violence as a help defense mechanism. I know that like everything I've been through, I had to find the point where of asking myself of how are you gonna heal. You know what I'm saying? And I think the healing started for me. And this is I was in solitary confinement my second to last time, and my mentor said to me, he said, "Yo," he said, because people kept coming back in when you're
Mm-hmm.
incarcerated, right? Like,
Wow.
yeah, people kept coming back in, and this one person came 3 times, and he said, "I don't know what's wrong with people. Are they scared to fail?" And I never knew what he said, and I kind of walked away from that. And when my second to last time, I was in solitary confinement. I had someone right next to me who was 19 years old, who is doing 25 to life.
And how old were
I,
you?
I was at that time, I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I was 20. I was 24. I was turning 24, uh, and I was getting no, I was 24 and getting ready to be going home. And then I had someone who was right next to me who was 60 years old, had to do 5 years. So I was
Wow.
in the middle between someone who was 18 years old, only 18 years old of their life, and they're doing 25 to life, and then someone who's been in the system their whole life, in and out 40, 30, 40 years. And for me, I'm not, there's certain issues, mental health issues that would
Mm-hmm.
need not incarceration for him. And I said, yo, like, where do I want to go? Do I want to be like the individual who you know, a split second, their whole life changed? You know what I'm saying? Or do I want to be like the individual who 60 years old and going through what they're going through? Or do I want to be someone different? And that's the healing process for me.